Hey, Paul. It's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Well, it's a very nice weather time here in southern Arizona before the
Mm,
onslaught before the onslaught of summer temperature. So it's very pleasant.
beautiful. That's a great one. Okay, Paul. You say thank you so very much for being here.
You're very
Oftentimes, yeah, beautiful.
you're welcome.
Oftentimes, yeah, thank you. Oftentimes, I love to thank my guest for two things, and I do this so often to the point where it has become an anthem for me. So, firstly, Paul, I want to say thank you for investing in yourself. You say you are on this platform right now, right here, because you invested in yourself. And oftentimes also I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. You see, Paul, some months back I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside there was this tall, unattractive mango tree. And I used the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it and the leaves are all dry. So I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, Paul, just recently I was on that same road, and this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree. You see, the mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance, and immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did, and it wowed me because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful mangoes. Beautiful green leaves and healthy branches. Oh boy. Not just mangoes now, but ripe mangoes. It was a beautiful moment for me that day, a special one at that. Here is my point. The fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Paul that you are today, that alone has made it really impossible for me to say no to you. And getting to read about you, a little bit about you, going through your bio, I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing, your insights, your philosophies, the impact your work is having. All of those things are beautiful. So thank you so very much for investing in yourself and thank you for being here. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I get up every day to do what I do. I'm
Beautiful.
a life of service. That
Mm,
if someone calls me up at 2 o'clock in the morning, I will answer the phone.
mm.
I am
That's
I'm a yes.
that's a beautiful one. That's a beautiful. And I still want to say thank you for sharing that write up with me. The one concerning the yes, we're still going to talk about it. But so let's get started. You see, I'm quite excited to have you on the show today, Paul, for some reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information, and not just knowledge now, but the application of it. And you see, Paul, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness means ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very, very important to me and even to the listeners. The second reason why I'm excited to have the amazing Paul on the show is for the sake of the listeners. You see, Paul, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got a lot of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, Paul, my man, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or professional journey. Because right now, we are just so curious. We want to know how Paul got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Paul, over to you.
Well, about 33 years ago, with a very fresh counseling education degree from the University of Arizona, one of the first populations I chose to serve were men who are perpetrators of domestic violence, batterers. And I started having classes for people who um, were assigned to or chose to participate in domestic violence and abuse class. And it wasn't too long, maybe a year, when I said to myself, well, how about we prevent it rather than treat it? after the damage has been done. And I started my journey to what is now marriage and communication .com. And along the way, I became a professional community, hospital, and hospice chaplain. But in the back of my mind has always been like, what do people need to know that if they knew it, they would never show up in my class? And at the end of now these 30 years, I have some very simple, uncomplicated recipes for a marriage or a relationship of any kind from home to work. And that's why, among other things, I wrote my book, Marriage and Communication Recipes for Life, which is not a chapter book. It is a recipe cookbook. You follow the recipe, you get your cake, and the cake is your life. And here we are. I'm living in Southern Arizona, and I get up every day to do this.
Beautiful, beautiful. The part that you said, what do they need to know so they won't attend your classes anymore? That part got me. That's so thoughtful of you. Hmm. Okay, okay, yeah.
Hmm. Well,
You wanted to say something.
one time I said to them, "This is not a domestic violence class. This is the best relationship on the planet class." And they looked at me, and the whole energy of the space shifted. They were no longer there as an obligation; they were there as an opportunity, and that has made all the difference.
Hmm. Profound statement. I got that. And you see, I get really excited when I get to learn new things from people, and it's happening already. That's a beautiful word. So, what makes your experience unique? Can you talk to us about that?
Well, while I am trained and have been certified as a counselor, I have learned that people mostly want the how, not the why. They want to know how to do it. Give them directions. They'll follow the directions and they'll have the results they want for themselves in their life. For instance, the very first recipe in my book is start your sentences with and. This accomplishes at least four things. When you're saying yes and, you're in connection. You are responding with your intelligence. They know you are listening, and they know you've heard them, and you've established a relationship. Maybe that's five things. So you're responding, you're listening. They know themselves to be heard. We've established a relationship, and we can proceed from there with the word and. Yes, and let's take some time and talk about this. Yes. Um, and sometimes just letting them know they've been heard is a gift on its own, because many of us don't feel that we are heard. So here we are, up in the very front. Yes, let's pick a time for us to talk. Or yes, I hear you. Can you add that little extra sentence? It helps too. Yes, I hear what you're saying, and I want to learn more. And your relationship blooms and begins to dance. You don't have to be in an argument longer than it takes to say yes. Maybe someone comes up to you and saying, Elisha, you need to follow my lead. And you go, yes, I hear what you're saying. I would like to learn some more. So even the most angry person can usually, not always, be calmed by starting your sentence with yes. You never lose control of your own life longer than it takes to say yes. If you have a teenager or a client, customer, or patient, and they have their point of view, you don't argue with them. You say, yes, let's look at the details and we'll know what to do next. All we've done is started our sentences with yes. How about breakfast? Yes. How about scrambled eggs? We want to turn our world into a yes and world rather than a no and a but world. Yes. So that's the first lesson of the first recipe. And don't argue with them. Don't defend yourself. Don't explain because they're not listening. Yes. Let's take a moment together. Yes. I'll make a cup of coffee and I'll sit down and I'll listen to everything you have to say. Yes. This is the magic can opener of communication. That's the very first lesson. It opens us up for communication. That's the first lesson.
Powerful. And I tell you, I can relate so well because it saved me from a very, very chaotic situation. The stuff could have resorted to something chaotic, but the ability to understand that since they aren't listening, There's no point arguing. Yes, you see, I got that.
If they're not listening, why bother? Connect,
Exactly.
guide. Yes, this is important. I want to hear everything you have to say. I'll make a cup of coffee and we'll sit down and start over. Yes.
I tell you, so true. So I'm a bit curious. What are some lessons that you've learned from your 26-year marriage to Rita? Can you talk to us about some?
Well, the first thing, it's a little bit funny, but it's true nonetheless. My spouse is a very planful, intentional person, and I am a little bit less so. If we get a chance to talk about personality types before we're done today, I'll can expand on that. But we discovered a few months ago that when she says now, and I say now, it's not the same now. She says, I got the dog on the leash, coat on my back. You said to want to leave. Let's get going. And I would be finishing up this and having a thought that or being distracted by this, and which would leave her very frustrated. But now we've adapted to one another. That's the gift of marriage and communication, adaptation to one another's communication styles. And so now she says, Paul, in 10 minutes, we are going to walk out the door. Get yourself ready. And then we walk out at the time she has designated that we leave. It could be as easy as that, just knowing some of the mischief that runs beneath two different personalities. And she and I have rather different personalities. And here, 26 or so years later, here we are. So that's one of the first things that came to mind when you asked that question. So
Beautiful.
I have lots of other things to say. We'll see how much we can cram into the time we have available. What's your next question?
Okay. So you mentioned something that caught my attention pretty good, and I wanted to learn more. That part where you said the cake is your marriage to enjoy. Can you talk more
Hmm.
about that?
Well, referencing .com, I recommend people go to it, take the quiz there, and you will learn your Myers-Briggs personality type. And it turns out that one of the personality pieces is sensor or intuitive. I don't have to explain that. 3 out of 4 people just want to know how. They follow policies, procedures, rules, regulations, manuals, and recipes. And if the preacher says, God commands us to, they say, thank you. Now I know how to be spiritual. They just want to know the details. They want to know the directions. 3 out of 4 people just want directions. And if you ask them, why are you doing that way? Couldn't you do it some other way? They tend to look at us if we're crazy because that's the way it's supposed to be. They're happy with a shopping list. They wouldn't go shopping without a shopping list. Why would they bother? But I love to shop just for the fun of shopping. So we have gone to the store sometimes with 2 shopping carts. She gets the list. I get to find all the fun stuff. So basically, when you follow the directions, I'm referencing my book, you will wind up with a relationship that you'll enjoy for the rest of your life. Your
Amazing. I
life is
got that.
your life is the cake. They want a cake. They don't want to know the interaction of flour and sugar and water. They don't care. They want a cake. So why confuse them with the details? Follow this direction, like saying yes and at the beginning of your sentences. Follow this recipe. That's the number first recipe. Start with your sentence with yes. It's a very kind way to start a sentence. Yes. As children, we got a lot of no's and we hear a lot of you. And so we are sensitive to no's and you's. We anticipate resistance from the people we're talking with. And we can avoid all that problem with yes. If you're a real estate agent and someone wants a very expensive house and with very less money, you don't argue with them. You say, yes, let's look at all the details and you'll know which one suits you best. Yes. Really, I preach people to say yes first. Gain control of your next moment and then choose the language to produce a future that you both enjoy.
That you both enjoy. Wow, I got that. So why did you format your book like a cookbook? It's like you mentioned
Because
earlier.
most books have chapters that you intend to read, and sometimes don't feel very interested in. So there's recipes. There's no chapters. There's recipes. And so you go to the table of contents, find the one that speaks to you, how to open a communication, how to take a time out, how to create a relationship. So you have a how to follow. It's formatted as if it was a cookbook. Follow the directions, get the results. This suits especially the people who just want to know directions. Tell me right turns, left turns, go straight ahead, 200 yards, turn right. This is, in this case, start your sentences with yes. Get very friendly with the word seems, because people tend to speak as if everything coming out of their mouth is the truth, but that leaves us in a trap. As you are listening to me now, your mind is always evaluating, is it good? Is it bad? Is it right? Is it wrong? Do I agree or disagree? Automatically seek to validate that what you're hearing is true. So in order to avoid that, we need to have the word seems. Seems to me bypasses the truth app. We're no longer looking for truth to argue about. Seems to me we bring up the past. Seems to me we've never talked about this. So a seems will get you a conversation where a truth will get you an argument. Seems. Yes, and opens up lines of communication. Seems open up lines for discussion. A seems indicates that it's an interpretation. We can talk about an interpretation. So seems helps us get into communication after we've said yes, and it seems that this is important. Let's sit down and discuss this. Yes, and so you have two recipes: how to open communication and how to avoid the truth trap that interferes with our quality of our listening.
Beautiful. That sounds like a very, very powerful book, I tell you. And thank you for creating that and putting all of those stuffs in a book. It's a great solution. Thank you.
A cookbook,
Okay. A cookbook.
not
Yeah, a
complicated.
cookbook.
Some of the recipes are like
That's
one sentence long. That's it.
wow. That's brilliant. Amazing. Okay. To bring this to an end, Paul, how do you help couples, families, and businesses communicate better?
Well, one of the things we start off with is that we want to imagine our family, our marriage, as if it was a bubble. A bubble. When we see our marriage and family as a bubble, we then can identify the boundaries of our bubble. Because people talk about boundaries, but I'm not confident that most people know what boundaries are. It's just a word we tend to use. So when you imagine your marriage as a bubble, you can say what belongs in and what belongs out. So, and this is one of many bubbles, but this one we can then ask, does what I'm about to do or say belong in our bubble or not? We want to have a safety in our bubble. We want to exclude anything outside the bubble, including unwanted advice. So if someone comes to, I have this great idea for you, and you go, yes, and thank you for sharing that. I'll talk with my spouse. We don't allow it in our bubble unless our spouse agrees, for instance. Otherwise, without safety, our bubble is cloudy. Within our bubble is our own personal life. What do you do for fun when you have your me alone time? That's your bubble. Your children have bubbles. As parents, we are shepherds of the growth and development of their bubble. We want them to have their own bubble when they grow up to be adults. They know who they are, and no one can mess with them. Because if someone tries to mess with our grown children with a powerful bubble, our children can say, yes, I'm not sure I want to do that. So we want to build a child bubble. We want to honor our own, because if you're not doing things fun for yourself, you're going to run out of yourself eventually. So we have the family bubble. We have the individual bubbles. We have our children. And it was very interesting. Just last night, a couple with three grown sons of about the 20-year-old variety, and they noticed that when the son moved out of their bubble, their relationship changed. Sure, you can catch this. Parents are used to having parents of children, but now they're parents of adult children. And there's a transition time between the parent of a child for which you are very familiar for 20 years, to a parent of a growing adult. And they were a bit disappointed when their son didn't call them back, didn't answer their texts. And so because he was no longer in the bubble. And yet when they came to visit for holidays, returning to the family bubble momentarily, things went as intended. So it's a useful model. You exist in a bubble, and you get to be responsible for what goes in and what you don't let in. It was last night. That was a conversation I had last night with a couple that were perturbed that their son wouldn't answer their texts. He's a 23-year-old. He's busy developing his own bubble. He hasn't got time to answer your texts. That makes sense, Elisha?
I tell you, a lot of sense. And I can relate so well. It's amazing how you made it quite easy to understand. So, for folks who like to reach out to you, get the cookbook, or they felt really inspired, they get to understand some new things and they would love to learn more. How can that be possible?
Well, it's on Amazon.com. You can find it there. They print on demand. Amazon will send you a copy of the book. There's also ebook. So if you're living someplace where mail is a little more difficult, you get the ebook and then you can listen to it. Though I recommend if you're going to be in a relationship, listen together, read it aloud together, taking turns, because this is a we educational process. Schools teach us me education. Right now, what we're doing in marriage and communication is we education. So it might be easier to get the ebook. That's fine. The concrete book, it's about 8 inches by 10 inches, and it makes a really good wedding gift. And it's a resource that you can rely on to revisit these skills for the rest of your marriage. So, and you can explore it on, marriageandcommunication.com. You can buy it at amazon.com, and you'll have really high quality information on how to maintain any relationship from home to work.
Beautiful. I got that. So instead of saying nope and or but, say yes and.
And a
Oh,
no by itself,
awesome.
a no by itself can break us up. A no with an and to follow leaves us connected and communicating.
That's so
No,
true.
and
Hmm, exactly.
I'm happy to talk more. I can talk for hours because I love to do this stuff, but
I
we've
say it.
made a good
I
beginning. We
say
made
it.
a
I
good
say it.
beginning. If you
Oh
have more
yeah.
questions, I'll
So
be happy to answer them.
yeah, that's gonna be the end. Thank you so very much, Paul, for being here, and thank you for sharing this beautiful stuff with us. It means a whole lot, my man. Thank you.
You are very welcome. And even where you are, if you call me,